Welcome to the second edition of the Bulluminati Podcast this week, folks. I'm your host, Nathan Bond, joined alongside me, Seth Varnadore, Robert Steeg. We've had 24 hours, 48 hours, I guess, to digest Michael Kelly giving Jeff Scott the boot as head coach of the South Florida Bulls. We'll get into we went really hard in the paint on our hot board. We'll talk about some potential candidates here, and we're 48 hours removed as well. But check it out; it's up on the feed. We depth on it. Seth did a bang up job with this. Was that a Canva?
It was a little Canva
PowerPoint slideshow.
I do on my.
Was that?
Yeah, Canva.
Big fan of Canva.
I enjoy the Canva. I do easy to do some presentations, do some YouTube thumbnails. It's even made a T-shirt there one time. It's great stuff. Yeah,
does everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. So we had Michael Kelly talking to the media today. He got asked about John Gruden before he could even get the first word out. Folks, it's not happening. Let's just lay those cards out on the table. It's not happening. It would never happen. Michael Kelly's not that stupid.
Stop trying to make John Gruden
There was
happen.
no smoke. Seriously, there was no smoke to it. The smoke that there was created. There was nothing to it. Michael Kelly hasn't even decided if he wants to use a search firm. We'll get into that. But just lay it out on the table, man. Not freaking happening. You're not, as Seth, you were the one that pointed this out on Monday or Sunday, whatever it was. USF's going, they really want 36% of the on-campus stadium to be all the vendors to be, female or minority based, and you're going to hire a guy who got fired for racist and misogynistic and homophobic emails back and forth, while also like exchanging topless photos of Washington Commanders cheerleaders with his old boss.
36% women-owned business, minority-owned, and veteran-owned business. It's like it might be a 3 strikes you're out on that. I mean,
we don't know if he kneeled during the national anthem, so he could have.
He probably. I mean, if you look deep enough in those emails, you probably found something. It seems like it was a den of iniquity in there, but and just like if you could even get beyond that, which seems like a pretty far way to go. If you're coming out and kind of announcing this for the stadium, then we're gonna hire this guy that just like spits in a couple of those, right? Even beyond that, like the guy hasn't coached at the college level for 30 years.
33 years.
For as long as I've been alive, 1991.
And he won a Super Bowl before all these recruits were alive. So that has no relevance to anybody that he would be recruiting. He might as well be, Vince Lombardi. Like that has no relevance to recruits. And then he's notorious for young players not being able to play for him. So how's that going to work at the college? He'd have to totally change the way he does things, which, then just kind of like, okay, well, if he's going to have to totally change like his schemes and things like that, what do you even want him for? So it made sense at no level to me.
I can't imagine a bunch of 18 to 21-year-old kids running fucking Spider 2Y banana. Like even as we're all pondering how stupid this is, like for the people that were so infatuated by getting a guy who comes in, recruits the shit out of Tampa. That is the last offense that you should be running if you're trying to recruit Tampa kids, is that fucking pro style offense. That's the only thing that John Gruden knows.
Yeah.
Holy
With
shit.
You might as well just get Bill Walsh's hologram or something. I don't know.
What school in the Tampa Bay area has fucking fullbacks? Find me a school that's going to produce a 310-pound offensive lineman that is just going to bully the shit out. You're going to have to go out to fucking Minnesota to get those kids. Like, oh my God. I forgot to tell you this, Nate. I started writing a piece on why, like, you can't hire John Gruden. This was before it got completely dispelled earlier today, and I might still, use it as inspiration.
I think you should still pop it off.
Probably.
Absolutely.
I'll finish it probably tomorrow. But like, there's so many just problems with it, and it starts from like beginning to end. But most importantly, I think we can all learn the lesson that I tweeted out the other day: is the loudest candidate and the first candidate is never, ever, ever the guy at any school, any program. Does not matter who's doing what. Like, like the second that they fired Brian Harsin, Auburn fans were screaming for Dion. It was leaked that, he might be interested, and they're probably not going to go with Dion. Like, it's evergreen every single time.
Yeah. It's certainly. I wonder. You want to hear like a 4D chess conspiracy theory?
Oh yeah, lay it on me.
Always.
John Gruden's name was leaked to people just to show people they actually wanted that they're willing to spend money. Because you'd have to spend money. I would imagine you'd have to pay John Gruden.
Would you?
I would think.
For what? What honestly, what would you have
to pay?
I
mean, you're not. I think it's like you're not going to hire him. So that's what it's like. To me, it's like, well, I don't even know where it would come from. If you were
his neighbor is a booster for the Bulls and started leaking it to his buddies in the media, and that's it. Literally how it happened. Let's not cut corners. Let's not pretend. There's a very nice hardwood club in his honor at the Yuengling Center. Like, let's call a spade at this point, folks. Like, listen, I am very well aware of being worked over for potential jobs. Happened in 2019. Guess who had a very long 45-minute conversation with a certain former head coach after Charlie Strong got fired? Like, and I wasn't the only one. That's just how this thing works. It's the blatant disregard for not knowing that's what you're being used for is where I have trouble. I can't wrap my head around someone in the media going, it's his job if he wants it. That's it. It's in. They're done. And then go and ghost. Like, hey, I made it to CBS. I was on the local Fox 13 affiliate. I got it. And listen, it's really tough because we've tried. Now I'm getting like inside baseball-ish here, but we've pretty well tried to make sure we dot our I's, cross our T's before we literally put anything out there. Like, we do a pretty damn thorough job, and it's disheartening when folks with they've got some megawatts behind them are just throwing names out there because it's the silly season. It's tough. I don't like it. I don't know. It's grimy, and it's everything I hate about what we do.
Right.
But
everyone tries to get the name out there first and then ride the wave and pretend like you had the insider sources on all this stuff. And
it's just let's be real here. It was never going to happen. It was a buddy doing someone a favor, and it's literally how Rich Bisaccia's name got bandied about every single time there was an opening around USF. That's literally how I don't understand how we continue to fall for this sort of crap.
Right.
But
especially how quick this was, by the way. Lo and behold, they barely probably got the ink dry on Jeff Scott's resignation paper.
I mean, damn, his body was still warm. Like, what are we doing here? It was like 12 hours later. Michael Kelly's already picked the guy.
It actually wasn't even 12 hours. I heard it 3 hours after the tweet was out.
I just want to say that we could probably blame Steeg for all of this because I believe he mentioned John Gruden's name like a month ago on the podcast.
I did. This must credit Robert Steeg from the Daily Stampede for absolutely ruining USF fan culture once again.
So if it did happen, Steeg had it first. So
yeah, I mean, it's just there was smoke to it. So just because it didn't happen doesn't mean.
Nate, what was the funny thing that the funny interaction you had last night?
Oh yeah, I talked to Michael Kelly last night at the men's and women's basketball game. So this was Monday night. And I congratulated him on maybe the quickest coaching search of all time, less than 12 hours, less than 24 hours. He goes, man, and I didn't even have to make a call. It was pretty damn impressive. I mean, good job all around. And that press conference, again, we're so far inside baseball, but that press conference was absolute hot garbage. From the top to the very end was just trash. I thought the way the guy, I don't even want to say his name, the guy at the top just blurted out, "You're going to hire Gruden." And then it was followed up with, "You can't really hire Gruden, right?"
Oh my God.
I
almost drove up to the Leroy Selman Center. I was vying for an excuse. I was like, Paige, do you need me to drive up to USF right now? Do you need food? Do you need drink? What do you need? Because I was going to drive out there and throat punch someone.
It was ridiculous. And then, Brian Segrist, who's the SID for football and for all athletics, goes, "All right, one more question," and it's just a guy thanking Michael Kelly for just being him. No question. Just, I think you're great.
Is that more of a statement, really?
I've been watching you from afar, like in the bushes. I think you're great. I don't know.
It's nice. It's just giving him a little affirmation in a tough time.
I mean, you could see him out in the hallway afterward.
That's true.
And so let's digress. So as the podcast title suggests, I suppose there's still a game to be played. We will preview the SMU game here in a little bit. I don't know why. Does it all matter? Probably not. So technically, we haven't really talked about the Temple game. Do we want to talk about the Temple game?
I mean, it was bad. I don't think there's much else to say. Like,
it was bad. Period.
It was like as soon as your offense the serve was broken, it was a blowout. There was so much pressure on the offense to perform. They didn't play great in the first half, but they started to kind of turn it on a little bit in the third quarter. But as soon as they made a mistake, it's over. And that's kind of the pressure they've been under on that side of the ball for most of the year. Like, you can play really well, but as soon as you go back to the Florida game, and the defense was able to generate some turnovers, but as well as they played, as soon as they made a mistake at the end of the game was over. Like, you lose, basically. There's no margin for error for the offense. So when they do turn the ball over 3 times, you're going to get blown out. And that's what happened. And it was not something I saw coming. But
I don't think anyone, literally anyone.
The guy was averaging like 2.9 yards a carry coming to the game, or 3.1 or something in that small range right there.
You made him look like fucking Barry Sanders out there.
Yeah.
I mean, thank God for Tanner Mordecai throwing for 10 touchdowns. Otherwise, the Temple would have had the offensive player of the week and the special teams player of the week in a week that USF fired their coach. So shout out to Tanner and his 10 TDs.
I think every single week, I don't think it's every single. A majority of the offensive players of the weeks have been USF's opposing.
Yeah, that would be an interesting look back.
I mean, it's been that way for about 3 years, if we're being honest.
You guys discuss. Let me do some math real quick.
I thought it was interesting today in Michael Kelly's presser. Basically, he kind of said what we are all thinking. He's like, I thought we were going to be telling a different story this week, I think is how he put it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm sure he'd been talking to Jeff Scott, hey, how are we feeling this week? I'm sure Jeff Scott was like, and a lot more polished. Hey, these guys aren't very good. We're going to win. Like, this is where we turn it around. And so, you're Michael Kelly, you're going to the game like, all right, this is where we turn it around. And that happens. You're kind of like, oh, okay, it's not happening. Like, I think that's probably, I think going into it with some expectation, because it sounded like he did, right? Based on what he said today. He kind of intimated that he thought we'd be talking about a big win and maybe this getting the season turned around, and the exact opposite happened.
Truly the literal exact opposite. And I was talking to some folks at the basketball game on Monday, kind of where Jeff Scott was, his mindset after that Temple game, and just kind of walking off the field. He knew it. Everybody around him knew it. Like, this was it. This was his shot to just stay afloat. And boy, howdy did he sink, and he sank fast.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was such, like, even like, I thought a loss to Temple would have been awful. Like, just if they would have kicked the last second field goal, I'd have been like, this is a terrible loss.
Right.
Borderline fireable offense, but to get blown out, I mean, there was really Michael Kelly's hands were pretty much tied at that point. There's nothing you can do to stem. Like, it really seemed like he thought they could win this one, get a little momentum, maybe beat Tulsa or something, get into the next season is what it just listening to him today. It seemed like the plan was, all right, let's just weather the storm, get these 3-4 wins, maybe get lucky at 4 wins, get to next season. That will be the referendum.
Get everybody healthy, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. It just couldn't. It exploded. It just there's nothing you could do about it. And I think that kind of speaks to his ability in the job to notice that, okay, it's time to pull the trigger. Even though our plan was this, circumstances change. Okay, we can't do that anymore. Understanding kind of where the fan base is at and where the program was headed. I think that it does show some leadership really on his part of kind of seeing that and not just sticking with, well, this is what we said we're going to do. We're just going to stick with it. Understanding circumstances have changed and pivoting and doing something I'm sure he did not want to do. I think he's got a lot of respect for Jeff Scott, which I think we all do. Just couldn't get it done on the field, unfortunately. But I think this shows some leadership from Michael Kelly to actually pull the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, it got, maybe not in actual dollars, but it got too expensive to keep them. Is really like the
sunk cost.
Yeah, the value did not exceed the price, so to speak, of keeping that continuity that he preached together, because you knew. I mean, it was over with, and that's why Bob Shoop's not here anymore. It just, he wasn't the right pick, and Michael Kelly, Tuesday during his press conference was, kind of pensive a little bit about how the 2019 firing went down and how the communication may have broken down a little bit, or maybe not as regular touch points with Charlie Strong. And he said he felt like he rectified that a little bit, handled it a little bit better. It's a weird thing to say, but you only learn what you should have done better after you go through something like that. And that that's, I guess, the good thing for him. Mike Kelly's got a lot on his plate. He has to nail this hire, and if he does not, he will not be here anymore. You can't fire 3 coaches, hire 2, and then have to fire the second guy you just picked. Like, that's not how college athletics works. And then you still have this men's basketball thing kind of floating out there where they lose to SEMO on opening night, where they were dead last in 3-point shooting the year prior. The year before that, there was, racism within the coaching staff. A bunch of players transferred out, and now you lose a bye game to Southeast Missouri State. 64-61, and now Michael Kelly has to deal with that plus this coaching search, and it doesn't get much better for men's. I mean, this is a total tangent, but it doesn't get much better for men's basketball. They go to Auburn on Friday. They play Stetson, who just knocked off Florida State. Like, there's a halfway decent chance you start the season 0-3, and now you're looking to hire a football coach, and now you've got questions swirling around your men's basketball program.
I think the one consolation that he's going to have there is that he did hire Lee Butler to kind of I don't want to say delegate, because that's not what Lee Butler was hired for, but your men's basketball search might not be as strenuous as your football search in the grand scheme of things. And so I think you kind of had that going for you as well. Depending on when I'm debating whether to say when or if here. When, if they decide to pull the trigger, I think is the best way I could say that.
Right.
But just checked. Yes, it confirmed every single week in the conference thus far that the opposing team that USF had played either had was the offensive player of the week or was on the honor roll thus far this season. So that's not great. Especially because one of them was kind of undeserving. The week that the Cincinnati week, Charles McClelland was honor roll for some reason.
He had a couple of touchdowns, I think. Right? Wasn't it?
I think he had 100 yards.
I thought his stat line and Bati's stat line were like just basically identical, but he had like a few more. He had like a couple passes caught out of the backfield or something like that, and
a win. So.
And they won.
And a win.
You reward.
Can't really give it to the losing team.
That's tough.
But yeah, hey, at least you might get lucky this week and play a team that's kind of lulling themselves to sleep and isn't like a high potent offense or anything like that.
Well,
wait,
Robert,
hold on. Fuck.
Yeah. Not great for USF's future. Interim head coach Daniel DePrado, new defensive coordinator Ernie Sims have a tall task ahead of themselves. At noon on Saturday, it's Salute to Service day. The game's on ESPNU. This SMU team, guys, put up 77 points against Houston. And I mean, they gave up 63, but that's a whole lot of points.
56.5. 56 in the first half. That's records are made to be broken.
I mean, that was impressive. I think it was the most points scored in a regulation game. 10 touchdowns by Tanner Mordecai. I think those were both FBS records or close to it. This Houston defense was not great. I mean, USF was able to do a couple of things before the game got away from them. Reoccurring theme there. But goodness gracious, I'm terrified what SMU is going to do. And I see Eric asking, was it odd that DePrado seemed very confident that the defense would be much improved with Scott and Shoop gone? I think it had more to do with Bob Shoop than anything else.
And also, what's he going to say? Nah,
you know what? I think we're going to be worse.
They're going to stink. Yeah, I think he's got to project. He's got to project some confidence too. But
yeah, that does remind me, because someone asked me earlier on Twitter about it, and I feel like now's the right time to project this to a larger audience. Is why Coach DePrado got the interim tag over, say, an Ernie Sims, a Trickett, pick your even Mogridge, who is designated as the assistant head coach, and why it was DePrado.
Do we want to play his music first before we talk about him?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Great
yeah.
segue. Phenomenal. Good
job.
Self high five.
Beautiful.
Hey, it's me. It's me. It's DDP. Daniel Prado.
That's right.
I mean,
Interim head coach.
interim head coach.
Correct. We got an interim head coach, Daniel Prado. He long lineage of interim head coaches for USF. So
They're 1-0.
Never lost, hopefully. So the interim tags are kind of weird because you kind of think, hey, give it to the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Really, it goes down to like the guy who you think is going to be able to keep the peace and keep the momentum and overall just keep everyone together. You don't want to pick obviously not necessarily a polarizing position by any stretch of the imagination. Offensive coordinators are obviously really popular in that regard because typically play calling duties and all that stuff kind of aligns with them, and usually they're good camaraderie guys. But you kind of want the guy who's going to fire up the team, get them going again, and make his voice the loudest in the room. I think
Michael Kelly talked about this today. I think somebody asked him why not. I believe, unless I dreamed this, why not trick it? And he was kind of said, Coach DePrado, being the special teams coach, is the one coach that talks to the guys on both sides of the ball consistently. And then he talked about the offense doing so well. He didn't want to ruin kind of their game planning flow or their workflow that they've been doing this year. So he wanted to, if he could get somebody that wasn't on the offensive side of the ball as the interim, he wanted to do that. DePrado's worked with the defense, and he's also interacts with both sides of the ball on special teams. So that kind of goes to what you're saying, Steeg. You don't really want to mess up too much with the other side. If you can get a guy that's working with both, and you don't have to take away from either side of the ball in terms of game planning duties and things like that, it makes it easier on everybody.
Right, and to answer, honestly, my favorite name to look at in the chat, Beer Lover USA. I'm sure Jeff had a little, with how cordial everything kind of went down. I would imagine Jeff had a little bit of say in who was going to be
probably a recommendation.
Hey, he probably gave like DePrado, probably Sims, I'd imagine was also, but Sims obviously being the defensive coordinator, can't really
He probably gave him a he could handle it type thing. Like
Jeff Scott should have just hired Ernie Sims as DC this year.
Would he have gotten a longer leash if he hired a young guy as the defensive coordinator?
I think
learning on the job.
I think the defense would have been scores better this year.
I guess we'll find out.
I mean,
you missed it last night. I was asking Nick and Steeg when we were getting ready for other show, do we owe Glenn Spencer an apology?
No.
For how bad the defense is still terrible. Maybe
I don't know that man shit. He's not on Twitter.
Maybe it wasn't him totally.
No, it was definitely him.
I don't think
it was probably him and his boss, if we're being honest.
I don't think he helped. So
lucky for us, they're both gone.
That's correct.
And I mean, Louisville kind of ran through Wake Forest last week. I mean, there was like 19 and a half turnovers. Can't really stop that, but still gave up a bunch of points.
Well, he's not calling the plays now. So I'm sure that's a big difference.
Yeah, that'll help. But
there you
go. We owe Glenn Spencer one Friday beer.
I've been thinking about it for 2 years now.
Gosh, basically, he's been thinking about it. We're coming up on a full year.
It's so sad that meme never got the run that it should.
I know. Oh, that's probably our most disappointing thing that we've haven't been able to fully utilize here. It just the way that the team reacted last year in the Central Florida game, I figured it would have just been a natural fit. You give Ernie Sims the co-DC title, but I mean, it was basically just like a pay bump kind of thing because Florida State started sniffing around for. I think they were in need of a linebackers coach last cycle, and they were sniffing around Ernie Sims, and it was Jeff Scott's way to keep him on staff and happy. I've talked to Ernie a couple of times. Like he's a dude that is he's going to go places. He will be a full-time DC somewhere at some point in the next like 3 years, if not sooner. The dude just has it. And he racked up a bunch of tackles in the NFL. He was the 9th overall pick by the Lions. Like, he had to play for the Lions. Like, he knows down bad. Like, he knows, like, in the mud down bad. All right. And he knows how to rally the troops, so to speak. It's going to be fun.
He's a Tallahassee guy. I wonder if there's somebody that might get the job that may know him.
Yeah, he is a Tallahassee guy. NFC. I think he went to North Florida Christian, if I'm not mistaken.
He played against his younger brother, Marcus.
There it is.
Not quite as good as Ernie, but pretty decent player.
Pretty decent. Let's do, we'll call it Hot Board 2.0 real quick. I'm going to rapid fire. I'm going to ask for your least favorite. You're going to have 4 favorites. All right. They're all going to be guys that you're going to be okay with hiring. And they can be the same. We know we've talked about this for 72 hours at this point. We're kind of on the precipice of kind of being all on the same page, I think. But Steeg, number 4 on your list, who would you be okay with?
Real quick before we start, can we say the Kerwin Bell is understood?
Yeah, Kerwin Bell is a blanket. Like,
that's understood. That's implied.
The Kerwin Bell is implied.
Okay. All right, so you don't have to use it. You don't have to use a spot.
You don't have to use a spot for Kerwin Bell.
The Kerwin is implied. Okay.
The Kerwin.
God, he was giving me my 4th one too. Now I have to like dig deep in my brain. Shit. What's his name? Alex something. He was the old UCF. These
Golish.
Golish.
These first 2 are going to be a trend. Yes, Alex
Golish.
That is my. No, fuck. I'm gonna say this actually before we get too off tangent. I was so mad that they still have not traveled Jordan Smith. Like, just use the guy.
Maybe maybe it'll change with the coaching. What if he just comes out and what we've decided last 2 games?
Fuck it.
No.
Yeah. So number 4 is probably. These are all gonna follow a trend, by the way. Alex Golish is probably number 4 for me. Not the sexiest names that you can grab out there, but hey, that Tennessee offense, when it's clicking, it does it.
He does not. I don't believe he calls plays, so that could be an interesting dynamic as he gets elevated. Probably
he's got a really
good
reputation. Like, people think he might be a rising star, but
also keep in mind, I pulled that name because that was the most recent name that I had looked up recently.
No,
you
absolutely.
caught me on a fly here.
No, absolutely. I like to keep you guys on your toes. Seth, for you, number 4.
I'm gonna put a guy here that I don't think is likely. I think it'd be a great hire, but I don't think it's likely. So I'll put him at 4 just because it's maybe a waste of time talking about it. I'll put Dion at 4. There's buzz that they might try to go after him, which I think you got to get a run at him, right? But doesn't seem likely. But I'll put him at 4 because I'm not seeing him on any of the other source to list from journalists around the country. So when they're tapping in their sources, that one doesn't come up. But I'd give him a run for sure. So I'll put him there at 4. Even though if you could get him, he may be my top choice if you could land him. But I just don't think it's likely.
Right. And for all those reasons, Seth, Dion was my 4th pick. I think he'd be a great hire. I think he'd be a great fit. He would energize the boosters like nobody's business. That would be a fun hire.
You want to talk about recruiting?
Yeah. You want to talk about getting your NIL stuff in order.
And you'd have Dion an hour from IMG. He'd probably do pretty well there, I bet.
Yeah, and you may be able to pry his son.
He'd be coming too. You'd probably get him and Travis Hunter. They've got some guys that could come in and play right away on that team that would one-time transfer in.
Yeah.
So he'd be a pretty good swinger.
He's making like $300K at Jackson State, mostly because he doesn't need the money. But if you were paying like Jeff Scott like $2.1 million this year, you could splurge. I think you can splurge on it. I mean, there's money in the coffers for the buyout for Jeff Scott. I put the FOIA in for the termination paperwork, figure out what the final buyout is. When I get it, we'll all get it. I'm sure every single journalist who's asked for it will get it at the exact same time. So it'll be a race to put it out first. So there's that. Steeg, number 3 for you.
Number 3, again, good God, you're gonna fall in love with me. GJ Kinney, the head coach at Incarnate Word right now. Again, former UCF offensive coordinator. I promise it's not because of the UCF connections. It's the offense that these guys run is just
it's a fun offense.
So dynamic. It's so much fun, and that's what USF needs. I really and truthfully, if every week was last week for SMU and Houston for USF fans, we'd have so much fun. It'd be so great. Film rooms would take 2.5 hours to unfold, but they'd be,
and just for
we'd break Seth's brain.
Just for reference, Incarnate Word is averaging 51.6 points a game right now.
And if I recall correctly, they put up 70 points in the first half in their last game. So
they put up 55 on Nevada when they went up for their bye game. They played Nevada and put up 55 and won. So, and it's quite a step up. You can.
So you're telling me GJ Kinney has as many FBS wins as Jeff Scott did?
Yes, and the margin. His margin is
doubled
better as well. Yeah.
He's 8-1 there. And their defense isn't that bad. They're just scoring the hell out of teams right now. So, the most recent score is 73-20. 35-7, 70-0, 49-14, 56-17. Like, come on. Just score fucking points, man.
I'll tell you. Seth, for you?
Number 3. I've kind of got a tie for 3 and 2, or it's close enough to be a tie. But for 3, I'd go Willie Simmons from FAMU. Florida guy. From Quincy. I heard him. He referenced himself. He said he's just a country boy from Quincy. I like him, just listening to him speak a little bit, listening to him talking media days, listening to him talking post games, listening to some mic'd up at practice and scrimmages type stuff. I like him. I remember I liked his offense when they came in to play USF last year, I believe it was. I thought they did some interesting stuff on offense, and just watching a little bit of them, they do some good stuff. I like him. I think he would do well and probably be a pretty good recruiter. He seems like a guy that kids would gravitate to. So, and he's in the state of Florida already, and they do a good job of identifying talent early. And they're down here offering kids in the Bay Area, like 20-25 kids already. So I think he would be an interesting one, and he's won kind of everywhere he's been. So he would be interesting to me. The guy I have above him that I'm coming around to, similar, I think, in terms of winning with lesser talent, but he's done it at a little bit of a higher level. So I'd give him the leg up now, but I think he's a really good candidate, Willie Simmons. He's got to be a guy that's interviewed, I think.
Yeah, I think so. My top 3 are pretty close together. Like I'll be okay with all 4 of these folks. But we're splitting hairs with the top 3 here. For posterity, for just be a little bit different than you, Seth. I'm going to go Tom Herman, number 3.
I don't have him in mind. That's a good one, though.
He's a consummate winner. All right. He got fired at Texas for winning. He won. He just didn't win enough.
They won I think they won 4 bowl games.
They went 4-0 in bowl games.
That's pretty good.
He's fun. He recruited Ed Oliver. He recruited De'Aaron King. Like, he knows how to recruit in this conference. And I think I understand that he may not be the nicest guy around. Sometimes he can be a bit of an asshole, but a lot of head coaches can be assholes. And quite frankly, maybe USF needs an asshole as a head coach, because the nice guy routine didn't really work. too well for them. And I think that's what Dion and Tom may have in common, for me at least, is they have no problem ruffling some feathers, and at least at USF, Tom Herman won't have to debate. He won't have the sniper in front of his head if he decides not to play a pretty racist song. So there's there's that.
He knows the hand signal already.
He already knows the hand signal, and it's a little bit different than when Charlie Strong got fired by Texas and then came to USF. Tom Herman won. He won games. He
9-3 beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl.
He won games. He won games at Houston. I think it'd be a pretty interesting hire there. Number 2 for you, Steeg.
Yeah, it's Willie Simmons. I just think it's part of me is torn by it as well. A lot similarly to a few people have kind of talked about it. Like I don't love the idea of poaching a guy who's HBCU through and through. When HBCU is desperately needing these sort of guys around them, someone that just really, conveys the message and the importance of historical Black colleges and universities, especially at a very trying time like this. It seems very shrillish to kind of just poach the guy because we can, basically triple his salary and tell him, hey, please fix this broken program, Willie Simmons. But that's not to say that he isn't a really good fucking candidate, because he's won almost everywhere he's been. He's been able to rebuild just absolutely destitute programs. I mean, Seth, Nick and I talked about it last night, where, he was the head coach of Prairie View A&M. Prairie View A&M, it was just an absolute downtrodden program that just nothing good could happen to them ever. And he found a way to win at Prairie View A&M. And by God, I think you can find a way to win at the University of South Florida, not using the exact same methods that you did at Prairie View, but following a very similar mindset to that. So he's again, not the sexiest candidate. A lot of casual fans probably wouldn't like it because, taking a guy from FCS doesn't, move the needle a lot for those casual fans. But, listening to him talk, listen to how infectious his personality is and how astute and studious he is at the game. He's got the pieces. I think after a few press conferences, he might win over some people.
I agree. It's a solid pick there. Seth, number 2 for you.
The second guy is Sean Lewis from Kent State. They run a really good offense there. He's 6'7" or 6'8". He's a gargantuan human being. And also, so Kent State, their history before he got there is they'd been to 2 bowl games, one in 1929 and the second one in 2006. He got hired in 2018. They've been to 2 bowl games since he got hired. They probably would have gone to one in the COVID year. They were 3-1. It had I first started looking at them because they had their EPA on offense was number 1 in the country, even above Alabama's when in that 2020 season when Alabama was absolutely loaded. So I kind of started what are they doing? They run kind of their OC that I would assume he'd bring with him, played at Baylor or has some connection to Baylor. So he knows that Bryles offense, and that's what they run. Basically same thing Tennessee's running. And he's a guy that at Kent State where they don't win very much. He's made 2 bowl games. So basically tied with the previous 100 or plus years or whatever they've been playing football. He's already tied them in bowl games. I think he would do a good job. And I think he would bring an exciting offense along with I think he's kind of a hard-nosed guy. And he's a coach everyone picks to win if there was a fight. So that's always good to have on your side.
Yeah.
He's 30 and he's 36 years old. And he makes $450,000. So you could probably double that or triple that and still be saving money.
Yep. I think the downside for him, Kent State's 3-6 this season.
That would be the tough sell. Is you'd have to sell the previous success. They graduated their quarterback that was a senior, and they also played Their out of conference schedule is brutal. I think they played on the road
Yeah,
at
it was
Washington, at Georgia, and they played
at
Georgia the second.
and Oklahoma.
Yeah, and they played Georgia closer than Tennessee did, I think, or it was pretty close. I think it was 39-22.
Yep.
So they were able to score a little on Georgia. So he would be an interesting candidate to me. I think I don't know. He's a Midwest guy, seemingly, but I think he would do well.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be an interesting pick. I think it'd be a tough sell for a fan base that's clamoring for someone with a winning pulse. I think that's probably the most uphill battle kind of thing.
And not a lot of name cachet. Like Sean Lewis, everyone's like, who's that?
Yeah,
So-
his record is like looking at his year-over-year record and everything like that is not the most inspiring
right
to look at. I will say that.
Yeah, you just have to understand where Kent State was when he took. They were
Right.
being really bad.
You're asking fans to be rational, Seth.
And for
You idiot.
I'm asking Michael Kelly to be rational. So
Um,
for them they started his first year. They were 2-10. They went 7-6 and won a bowl game his second year. So
then 3-1, 7-7, and 3-6 this year. So
yeah, this year's kind of dipped down, but they won their division last year and lost in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl.
Yep. So number 2 for me is Willie Simmons. For all the points that you mentioned, Seth, I think he'd be a great candidate. Knows the area, would probably be able to keep Ernie Sims on staff, and I think build around it. And Steve, to your point about kind of pulling guys from HBCUs, frankly, I'm all for it. Who cares? There needs to be more black college, FBS level college coaches. I don't really care where they come.
Yes.
I really don't care where they come from. I want them to be successful. It's kind of atrocious, I think, and it's so far out of our spectrum of sports. But like the Jeff Saturday thing with the Colts is probably one of the most
so bizarre.
It's like
That gives me hope that maybe Michael Kelly will call it. My phone could ring.
I mean,
that gives me some hope.
you're an analyst. You're just hanging out.
At least I cover the team. I don't think Jeff Saturday even covers the Colts specifically.
I mean, you have more.
I just revealed
number
one on my list. Myself.
It's me. But I mean, that's why these guys get into coaching. They want to coach at the top level, and he is more than paid his dues. He's ready for the jump, and I would be over the moon excited if he was the head coach.
Somebody's coming for him. Somebody's coming for him the next couple of years.
Yeah,
so
I think so too. And Steeg, drum roll, your top pick right now, Hot Board 2.0. Who is it?
Oh, it's Jamie Chadwell. And for multiple reasons.
Wait, time out. Seth, is he your number one as well?
Yes.
He's my number one as well.
Right.
Congratulations. We've done it, folks.
We're giant groupthink over here.
I nearly put Tom Herman number one. Like that's how close 1, 2, and 3 are for me. But again, I'd be ecstatic with all 4. But Jamie Chadwell, my God, that offense, guys.
Yeah, I mean, and imagine a Gary Bohannon running that offense too. It's fun and enticing to me, but I think it's and I'm gonna talk about a different thing besides just the on-field potential of it all. Is that
the hair?
The hair. Oh, good God. He fits in with Florida, but not this part of Florida.
The mullet, the mustache. Oh, Steve.
Full sexy individual here. No, but I think what it can do, at least for USF in this type of situation, to poach not just another group of 5 head coach, but a very successful group of 5 head coach at a university that's been sustaining success for the last 6 or 7 years in football, can really kind of reestablish who USF is. It's very much going out there and putting your dick on the table and saying, yes, we've been bad for the past 6 years, but we still have fuck you money.
Yeah, you want to sell investment? Go out and triple Jamie Chadwell's salary.
And you can do that.
Yeah.
He's at what? He's at
He makes
900K right now?
900K.
He's at 900K. And
He has
you can
50K.
easily get him 2.7.
He has 50K raises every season.
Yep. And he recruits the hell out of Florida. Every time I see USF offer a kid, and USF is really good at offering kids early.
Yeah,
Coastal Carolina either has done it before or shortly thereafter. So he recruits the hell out of Florida. So you're getting a guy who is doing pretty good on the NIL front with his kids. And again, they're in Coastal Carolina. This is not a business hotbed of the world by any stretch of the imagination. He's recruiting well already in the state of Florida. He has that head coaching winning experience, and God damn it, you can triple his salary. That's, you know, and he's about to lose Grayson McCall. He's about to lose a lot of those senior guys that he's kind of built and brought back. Is he up for the challenge? Who knows? You know, there are some coaches that may be comfortable in Myrtle Beach, but
let's like Brian Battie and these backs in that offense too. I mean, the offense
Boy, howdy.
for the state of Florida, you could recruit to that offense really well. And you don't have to have like a great passer every year. You could just kind of find guys in the state of Florida, guys that are more athletic, but you can also mold it if you have a guy that's a passer. I think his offense is somewhat malleable, and it's really exciting. You would become like if you hired Jamie Chadwell, at least with the college football nerds, you'd become like appointment viewing every week, right?
Right.
He's a guy. People have always talked about, what if you got this gimmick offense in the state of Florida? Like, what if you had the air raid in the state of Florida? Which I would love them to hire an air raid guy too. But what if you had like this or that in this with Florida athletes? This would be an offense if you had with Florida athletes. It would be really, really fun to watch. And the guy doesn't take himself too serious. I mean, we saw the mullet. He grew it out because guys on the team grew it out. So he's like, yeah, I'll grow one out too. Like, and they did a good job of branding themselves. I think their thing is balling at the beach, Myrtle Beach. They've done a really good job of kind of digging in with the community, ingratiating themselves with the community, and then kind of marketing themselves to recruits to where people want to go play there in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So I think he would be a home run hire, especially if he brings his staff, which is, I think he would, because they've been with him for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He came up through D2, won at D2, won AA, won there, moved up to Coastal and has won there. He seems to fit what they want. I think they want energy. I think they would probably prefer head coaching experience, even though they said it's not necessary. I'm sure you would prefer having a head coach. And he's a guy that has been kind of a finalist or up there for Power 5 jobs. If you came in there, like Steeg said, and grabbed him, that signals to everybody, hey, we're investing, we're spending money, we're not screwing around anymore. So I think it would be a good signal to the fan base as well that, hey, we're investing in this.
the only foreseeable problem that I can see is there's probably another school between Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and Tampa, Florida, that is probably going to be going after him as well. I would probably assume. And so you might have to fend off a Georgia Tech.
But yeah, I wonder how his shtick kind of plays there, you know?
Right. I mean, culture wise, any culture can fit as long as you win football games, really, at that point. But you know, he's definitely like, give him a call.
And yeah, I've been surprised to see his name on lists that like national journalists and people with some sources are putting out. So to me, I thought it was kind of a pipe dream at first, but to see his name pop up on these lists, and I think it got added. The Athletic put out a list, and then they went back and added Jamie Chadwell to it after they initially put it out. So to see that kind of lends some credence to the thought that it's possible. And I think if it's possible, that would be a great hire.
The question I have for both of you, because I know you guys just absolutely stand Coastal and their offense, would Willie Korn come to Tampa with him, or is he's basically lined up to take over and be the next head coach?
That would be kind of when I was saying I think he'd bring his whole staff. You could lose one of those coordinators, I guess, there. Now, Korn is like a co-offensive coordinator with their running backs coach. I think Korn is
Isaac, I think, or something like that.
I think Korn is the passing game guy. But he's been with him for a while, but I think his defensive coordinator has been there too for a long time. So they may all want to just move on to Tampa, but yeah, one of them may get left behind. But I think what's nice is like he is the guy. It's kind of they work it together, but it's his offense. So I think you'd still kind of get it. The offense wouldn't leave with Willie Corn. When we were wanting Willie Corn as the OC, it's because he could bring some of those elements down last year. But I think Chadwell is the guy. He was an offensive coordinator before he was the head coach at Coastal. He was the OC and then was an interim, then got the job full time. So,
yep. And we've kind of touched upon it a couple of times. And so in 2019, it wasn't really the offensive, like it wasn't an offensive problem. Like I think we could probably all agree, the Kerwin of it all. If he doesn't take that job in 2019, he's probably a candidate
front runner,
in 2019 or even now. And now it's kind of the same kind of process. Now, Travis Trickett, he's not going to get this job, and now he's kind of in no man's land, right? Where like he was brought in to kind of help usher the offense forward. He's done that, and now he's in no man's land of wherever he could possibly end up.
I think it may depend. I think there's a few guys on the staff that could get retained, where like last time, it certainly seemed like they didn't want anything to do with anybody that was on staff.
Do you think they're going to do exit interviews?
I would certainly hope so. If you don't,
why it'd be stupid if you didn't do exit interviews with the previous.
Yeah, that'd be stupid.
Like because like if like let's say like a couple of coaches had like an idea of okay, we're probably gonna need to go this and this in recruiting. Here's where we go get it from, to make the team as good as possible the next season. Like that would be good information. To know, I think so. That's what you do some. I'm sure you do some exit interviews. To not do it would be really naive and foolhardy, I dare say.
Yeah, and if you would combine that with maybe not watching game film from that season that you're taking over, it'd just be doubly bad.
It probably would. It would be. I'd imagine it'd be tough to win more than like one game that first year, if that was the approach you took.
I would agree.
Jeff Scott didn't do exit interviews. We'll nip that at the bud.
Ridiculous question. Can you sell to Prado if they win out?
Oh, I can sell the shit out of him.
This is all you, buddy.
Oh my God.
Take it away. You've got 2 minutes to sell me on Daniel DePrado if they go 3-0.
Oh, fuck me. I want high energy. Listen, dude's high energy. Dude loves the players. The players love him. This guy cares so much about this Tampa Bay community. I will actually be pissed if the new coach that is brought in does not retain Daniel DePrado, because this guy is completely bought into the Tampa Bay community, and he has the best Twitter account that I've ever seen from a coach in general. Like, you know, he's approaching like Sean Tucker level of just absolute just shit cannery tweeting, which is just an absolute sell for me as a degenerate tweeter at this point. Really, in all honesty, I love DePrado. I think he's going to do a phenomenal job for his 3 games here. I think this is basically his audition to do bigger and better things aside from being a special teams coach. I think what he's been able to do at USF, you know, turning the special teams into not just a close-knit family, but a successfully, you know, well-oiled machine, and getting people to give a shit about special teams when they was just so neglected previously is such a blessing that, you know, whether he stays here, whether he doesn't, he's destined for great things. You know, his defensive coordinating audition last year kind of probably gets him a leeway into a pretty, you know, well off position at some point in the near future. So damn it, hire the man, keep him in the wheelhouse somehow, some way. Even if he's just your culture, coach, pay that man the salary that he deserves.
If they went out, does he guarantee himself a spot on the next staff, you think? If you come in as an interim and you went out, Would that guarantee? Would you think somebody would keep him on then?
Who was it at Florida State? The that longtime coach that's been there for like
Odell
30 years.
Higgins.
Yeah, Odell Higgins. It feels a lot like that. Like if we can have Daniel DePrada be like the Odell Higgins of USF, like I'd be all for it. It'd be incredible. Yeah, just keep the special teams coach. I mean, he doesn't have to mesh gel or anything. He just has to have good player relationships and everything. So, yeah.
I agree.
We can probably address Bill's question.
When I mean we kind of touched on that. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
I mean, he didn't hire Brian Gregory, so he's got that going for him. He hasn't fired a basketball coach yet, so there's that. So he hasn't gotten a shot at doing that. I think he's probably had multiple opportunities to fire Brian Gregory, and hasn't yet. And we'll see on the court if it was a mistake or not. After Monday night, it may have been, but we don't know that quite yet. We probably do, but still, we'll keep close eye on that and how things kind of shake out with this coaching hire. How much I think it was pretty eye-opening. It kind of, I don't know if it went under the radar, but it really felt like Michael Kelly made a point on Tuesday to say, it'll be, he was talking about the search firm and, doing background checks and kind of why you bring them in, maybe not turning over the search to them completely, but basically saying, this is going to be my choice. The board and president aren't going to be kind of dictating this. It's going to be my choice for the next football head coach. I thought that was, I don't know, maybe not important, but telling at where the state of affairs are, that maybe he wanted to be clear about who was making the decision with that hire.
How much due diligence, looking back on it, how much do you think he did on Jeff Scott? Or do you think it was like, that this is who I'm hiring? Like, you think it was pretty much, because it happened so fast. You think by the time he fired Strong, he already knew that he had Scott in the bag? Or
I don't know
if you don't have
that.
anybody doing background, like, because he has contacts in the conference and contacts with a lot of people that knew Jeff Scott. Like, do you think it was just as simple as him reaching out to those people?
Probably.
If he did it by himself, he didn't have background checks. He didn't need all that for that search. But
yeah, you probably periphery kind of background stuff, making sure there's no skeletons in people's closets. He did interview 5 guys. Some of them were courtesy interviews. I don't think the 5 names ever been put out, so I won't do that. But it was an eclectic group. 3 years later, it's the group that it doesn't have its the luster that it did in 2019. I think it's fair to say. One guy's being sued for some improprieties. Another guy hasn't. 2 of the guys haven't been in football in like 2 or 3 years. One guy struggling at a FCS school. And there was one more. Oh no, that's it. And then the guy he actually hired. So there's that.
Yeah.
I think he may cast a wider net, and I think that's why the search firm may be in place to maybe go a little bit more national. Maybe stay a little bit south, because you honest to God need the Florida ties, or if you don't, your offensive or defensive coordinator, someone needs to be able to recruit South Florida, especially. That's why Trickett was brought in. Because he has those South Florida ties. That's going to be a key piece for everything. But we are an hour and 4 minutes in. We really haven't talked about SMU. And frankly, guys, I suppose there's still a game to be played, but man, who cares? Go have fun. I don't care what y'all do. SMU's freaking good. They've got a really good, fun offense. I mean, their EPA is
27th in the country, 18th throwing the ball. Yeah, basically USF's only chance is a shootout, And so it's kind of the same as last week. If you don't turn the ball over, I think you have a chance offensively to put up some points. But if you turn the ball over, this is one that gets away from you really fast again. So kind of the same script as last week, except big difference from last week. SMU's actually really good on offense, and Temple was not.
So maybe the inverse happens, and SMU can't move the ball.
Yeah. So their defense is pretty poor. I think Parker's got it as like a 10 or 12 point game, doesn't he? Something really.
Yeah, it was like a 45 to like
35 something like
or
that.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a smaller
It's a lot
margin.
closer than. Yeah.
So that was interesting. But I think we talked about it last night. Only chance USF has to win is a shootout. I would imagine, unless Ernie Sims is like, Buddy Ryan reincarnated. And then I think your only chance is a shootout. You're going to see a ton of points from SMU. And USF is actually one of the biggest over teams in the country. They've gone to the over. I think they're how many games have they played? 9 now. I think they're 8-1 to the over.
Mm-hmm.
Average of 8 points higher than the total. So, yeah, you're gonna have to keep the offense on the field.
Yes, sir. Yes, you are. But honestly, guys, I think we've kind of overdone it, done it a little bit more. It's going to be an interesting 4 weeks. Michael Kelly did say kind of wanted the deadline December 5th, maybe a little bit before that. That gives them so this final game's the 26th. So that's basically 9 days again, from the final game to December 5th. It was prudent to get a head start on this. So we'll go from there. Stay tuned. It's going to be an interesting final 3 weeks of the season plus. And just a quick reminder, when a coach is fired or leaves, all current players have a 30-day window to enter the transfer portal. It's not the designated portal time, so just be aware of that. So they basically have until December 6th to enter their portal. So just be prepared for that so they can enter at any time right now, if that's what they think is best for them. So just be aware and wary of that. But for now, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Be sure to download, subscribe, like, rate, 5 stars, whatever you want. For Seth, Steeg, I've been Nathan Bond. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Bulluminati Podcast. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls. Hey, good luck to Coach Batsi and Sarasota as they play Manatee in the playoffs this week.
Ooh, big game. Go Bulls.